you kind of somehow came up with a system how we could literally just shoot like hundreds of ads.
You noticed that really early with Instagram Reels. Now almost everybody's doing it because of Alex Hormozi and you.
There's always a choice to be made between feel good and tell yourself that you're better than you are, or feel like shit but make more money.
If you look at Amazon, if you look at Booking.com, these people are constantly testing.
Every 8-figure business owner I talk to, and I ask them, what percentage of people do you hire that you talk to? They all say 1%.
I made a joke, my girlfriend might know more about running ads than you, Max. I always tell my clients, I will make you succeed or I'll make you quit.
All right, Robin, good to have you here, my man. Over 50 million online generated for your clients. You've completely rebuilt our funnel. You've helped us out tremendously with our cold traffic, with Freedom Business Mentoring. That's why I wanted to have you on, because I kind of want to document what we're going to do in 2024 to hit 8 figures, plus what people need to do if they're currently making roughly 50K a month in order to scale to multiple 7 figures, and how people can largely automate lead generation, but also the delivery side of things and everything. So we kind of want to call this like the multiple 7-figure podcast episode with the one and only Robin Bouwman. So thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Has been a great year.
Yeah,
and now we're looking forward to doing that again, but on steroids. So there's going to be a couple of things that we're going to be working on. One thing that you might have noticed, if you have, like, for context, we're talking mainly about coaching and consulting, right?
Yeah.
That means people that are selling some coaching package or also online course, but they're helping people out in that way. So we're not talking about e-commerce or anything like that.
Service providing is another.
Service providing as well, right? That's what I'm doing. So I help people with ads, just like you. So we're talking about those kind of businesses. So the first thing you will kind of see is that this whole booking a call, and everybody knows it's a sales call by now, right?
Yeah.
So you see like, oh yeah, book a free call, apply, for this, try this, get access to that if you book a call. So the first thing that we're going to be doing is segmenting a little bit better there, so that a specific problem matches the subject of the call. And we're also going to work on the perceived value of that call.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of people that watch your ad and they directly want to book, but if they don't directly book, how are you going to make sure that those people book, right? So that's one of the things we're going to be working on.
Yep.
Another thing, of course, with you, and that's also something we talk about a lot, is there's a lot of gurus in the space. So we're going to go even more authentic. Yeah. And we're going to do something different messaging-wise. People will see what that's going to be. But we're going to be different than everybody else screaming and saying like, hey, this is the best online business model.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing some stuff like that. So that's the biggest thing messaging-wise. And that will be in the ads, that will be in the calls. That will be pretty much in everything. Another thing that I'm really bullish on, like if we look in Europe, is like the whole WhatsApp thing and chat messaging. There's a lot to do.
Yep.
So those are the biggest things that we're going to work on. And we are also reverse engineering our sales process a little bit, thinking about like, okay, how can we make it as easy as possible for our closers to close by just making the marketing really good and pre-qualifying people there, so that the people with money actually book a call fast and we close them. So I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but I think that's pretty much it in a nutshell what we're going to work on.
Yeah, and to backpedal here for a little bit and kind of zoom out and give people a little bit of an overview over how the market is going to develop, especially for online coaching, consulting, service providing, is this whole high ticket thing has changed a lot over the last 3 years, massively, especially after COVID, because a lot of people came in, a lot of new people came in, a lot of gurus got had things explode in their face. So I would almost argue that kind of like the easy times are over, which means if you don't find ways to improve yourself constantly and to reinvent things in your funnel, and by funnel I mean from starting with ads over to the content that you're producing all the way to the closing, if you don't reinvent yourself there and you stay on top of your game, so to speak, you're going to lose out. The times where you just copy paste some funnel from someone, have B player closers there, they're over. You might make some money, but especially if you want to, plow through the ceiling of 100K a month and you really want to scale to multiple 100K a month, you need to be able to reinvent yourself, to be unique in a certain manner, and to really be efficient with your marketing, with your sales and everything. It's like the margin for error is getting smaller and smaller. That's one of the biggest lessons that we've had in 2023 last year, and that's one of the things we're going to go full on attack mode this year. And we've had a really great meeting with our executives earlier today where we said, aggression, innovation, and speed. These are kind of like the three things you really need to hone, and it takes balls. It takes chutzpahs. And that's why I think it's so awesome to have you on board, because you're a facilitator of that. You don't only have the balls to do that, but you also have the know-how. And really funny enough, before we crack deeper into the nerdy stuff, I'll never forget, man, like you were our client years ago. I think that was 5 years ago or something. You literally probably were one of the first clients in Freedom Business Mentoring. Can't remember when you bought it.
Yeah, I think 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. And then you were crushing it. I think, you back then you got relatively close to 20K a month and then 50K a month that you just made with your service providing in terms of the marketing services. And then you came to Kiev to my office back then. And I remember we were relaxing there. We were in the jacuzzi, and you were still our client back then. And you were just rambling in the jacuzzi. Yeah, you guys, if I were you, I would do this, I would do that, and then we do this. And I'm just like, I kind of want Robin to work with us, man. And then we worked with someone else before, but even there, you still gave us really spot on advice. And then I had to really convince you to work with us over like multiple weeks, because you kept saying no. And then somehow you changed your mind, you made it happen, and look at us now. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, there it's like, it is what you just said. It's getting harder. Also, if you look at customers, they're getting burned here and there by coaching programs, by online courses. So you actually need to be good. And I was like, oh man, I looked at it. I'm like, you have a nice foundation, but like to really build out something new and to make cold traffic work, that was a lot of work, and I was pretty busy. And that's also kind of one of my things where I don't like to take on clients if I'm too busy, because it's for me more like a partnership, as you have noticed. Like I literally want to be involved with everything, because if I'm not, then something will go wrong, right? I'm even interested sometimes in customer support because it gives me great marketing ideas. Or, if your offer doesn't evolve and everybody's doing the same offer, right? You're not going to make it. So, that was pretty funny. I actually said like, start working with that other guy. I will just hang out a little bit and give you some advice, because, that was the right time. But
that was also years ago, right? It was at 2021, I think. That was winter 2021 or something like that.
Like,
Crazy how time flies. Anyways, let's get back to the nerdy stuff. So we kind of touched on it, but to give a precise answer to a precise question, how will marketing look like in 2024 for coaching, service providing, selling info products, etc.?
Yeah, so it's kind of a little bit like what you just said. Like you actually need to be unique. Like there's a couple of ways to stand out nowadays, but you need to stand out, right? Because there is competition. So if you're just building your little personal brand, making 5, 10, 20K a month, that's fine. But if you actually want to reach a big audience and scale, like you're going to have to convince a lot of people, and you need to actually stand out. That means you need to be super charismatic and super good with organic, or you need to actually figure out a way to deliver your results in such a way that other people are like, oh my God, I've never seen that before. And that will then, of course, translate to all your marketing messaging.
Yeah.
If we're talking about how to make money online, you see that the FTC, that's an organization in the US, is starting to become more strict and strict. So in some way, you need to be more extreme and better. But on the other side, you also want to be more safe, because there's like organizations actually checking whether what you're doing is legal and all that kind of stuff. So the time of, just slapping some videos together and having an online course, it's kind of over. Like you see a lot of companies nowadays, like for example, what we did with you, right? At some point, we even had templates every month for your clients that they could use. And that's a good solution. They're like, oh, I don't have time to write my social media, blah, blah, blah. So we came up with that solution. Some companies like photography companies, they have a special app. There's always like another way to make your offer even better. And then people are like, oh, I've tried these 5 things. And you're like, it didn't work because you didn't use these templates, right? You never use templates. You were trying to do it yourself, or, you didn't use an app, or it's like there's a different solution there that makes you actually unique. So that's the biggest thing. That's the most important thing pretty much.
Yeah, so what I've noticed too, because you said like you got to find a way to be unique, I can basically subdivide that into roughly 3 categories on how to be unique, and ideally you touch on all 3 of them. So one that you mentioned is charisma, which basically translates into you as the person. If you as the person are able to be unique be it with your content, be it with your character traits, your quirky character traits, anything that you embody as a personal brand, that's going to be helpful. If you're just like the next guy that looks like everybody else in your niche, with the same damn haircut, the same damn watches, I know, look who's talking. Yeah. But I can at least compensate because I'm relatively quirky. I have a very interesting brand where I also let my personality shine. Like you hear me talk about Star Wars or metal, instead of me just being like this dry guy that just spits out the same stuff that everybody else has talked about. That's one way of being unique. The second way of being unique is, internally we call it the sexiness of your offer. So whatever it is that you're offering, you got to make it sound really sexy. So in our example, if we just say we help coaches and service providers make 6 to 7 figures, there's 1,000 other people out there. So we need to have a specific direction that our offer goes into. Is like, okay, well, the vehicle with which our coaching and service providing clients get to 6 to 7 figures is this and this and this. So it's like you as a listener need to be able to translate the end result of your offer via a very sexy sounding vehicle. And if it's not sexy sounding yet, you better change it so it is actually sexy and it gets away from this just vanilla type of offer. And then the third way to be really stand out is actually by having really freaking good results. Like you said yourself, the times where you just slap a bunch of videos together and have 2 live group calls per week with your clients, those are fucking over. Okay, like what we have done since 2019 is we basically have everyday live calls with our clients. Everything we do is one-on-one. Even if you just come in as a base level program person where you buy the cheapest of our tiers, you're still gonna get a one-on-one coach. Now that hurts us on the front end profitability because we need to hire more people that actually handle one-on-one support. It costs us way more in terms of attention to details, in terms of time that we need to manage these people, that we train these people, and so on and so forth. And quite frankly, time on a personal level to actually invest in each and every one of our clients. But it's a thing that pays off in the long run. People come to us from the exact same offers that someone else has. I don't want to call names here. And they're like, oh my God, it's like day and night. There I just have a couple group calls. I'm being left alone. They close me and then they drop me like a hot potato. But with you guys, I have concierge coaches. I can get replies super fast. I have freaking live calls every day that I can join. Hell, like for my one-on-one clients, I even work on weekends if necessary. I say, hey, if there's some urgent thing, I don't care if it's Christmas or New Year's, I'm here for you. So if you can hit one of these 3 ways to be unique, you're going to win. If you can hit all 3 of those ways, the sexiness, the delivery, and the personality, then you're going to dominate.
Yeah, and especially what you just said, like caring about your clients, like the lifetime value of a client will go up so much. And the more people that start advertising or the more competitors there are, the more expensive it is to acquire a customer. Like, so if we're talking about acquiring a customer, like what we are doing is like we're running ads on YouTube, Facebook, we did TikTok, and we're buying like Instagram promos, Instagram shout outs. Yeah. So it always costs money to acquire a customer if you want to actually scale to multiple 7 figures, right? There's still some exceptions that are really good at organic, but it's almost impossible nowadays. You need to be like a super savage. Like if you're making multiple 7 figures a year with organic, that's really impressive. Yeah. And then again, it's super dangerous because if something with the algorithm change, if some guy or girl reports you for some weird stuff, like your account gets taken down and you're done. So the cost per acquisition will go up like always, like it's always been in the past. So it's more important to care about your clients and like actually keep them so that you can offset like the rise in cost. Yeah. So even then, if you're not that unique or not that sexy, you can still make it work as long as your back end is really good. So that's the biggest thing.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you anyways, I don't know, just on a personal level, just regarding of this podcast, is you're someone that is so obsessed with marketing. Like in your spare, I don't know, but I imagine you in your spare time just freaking watching videos on marketing, just looking at trends and stuff like that. Is that something that is just out of interest, or is it more out of duty where you're like, I have responsibilities, which are my clients, to just be on top of that? Or is it something that you're just personally super hyped about?
I mean, that's a good question. I think it's a combination of both, right? Like to be good at something, you have to be at least somewhat interested in it. I would not use the word passionate because we both have our opinions on that. So yeah, that's a little bit interest, a little bit passion. Yeah, and also I need to do it, right? Because I have seen it multiple times where clients didn't really implement like innovations and they just lost it. Like I never lost a client that did better after they left. And most of the time I was pushing them like, hey, you need to innovate because if not, we're not going to make it or it's going to just go down. So it's that, but it's also responsibility. But on the other side, it's also kind of automatic because everywhere you look, right, everything is marketing. Like even if you're like, let's say on the bus, like you can look around and see what people are doing. Are they on Facebook? Are they on TikTok? Are they scrolling? What are they checking? Are they listening to music at the same time, right? Like it's literally everywhere. It's like from the commercials you see on TV or on billboards to just if you're scrolling on Instagram. Like if you're checking your friend's Instagram stories, some ad will show up, right? Yeah. And you will see an ad. Apologies. So it's also kind of something that 24/7 kind of happens to me, especially because I look at it. And then in general, like, right, if you want to improve your life, you have to know how you work yourself, right? And you have to know how others work. So just self-improvement helps with marketing. Just in general, like how to make more money and have a good life. You kind of learn about the economy, like about all these things happening. So for me, it's like just one thing that's just kind of like multiple facets together that I have to work on anyways, both from interest and from duty and from, other like purposes. Yeah.
So is that how you stay on top of new trends with marketing and, social media and sales?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I have multiple things, right? So I just kind of do it daily all the time, automatically.
What do you do a day? Like just explain it to like a Labrador. How?
I mean, so the daily thing, there's not much explaining to do. It's I just watch. I just look around, right? I'm like, I am, that 15 to 30 minutes on Instagram. I look at the ads. I have some profiles that I follow that are doing well. I just look around. Like I just live my life. And instead of just like looking at it, I think about it. It's like, okay, what is this doing? How does this influence me? And then I also have a conscious way of doing that. And that is like every week or every month. For example, like for you, I have a list of competitors. I check out the competitors. I have some spy tools. So I'm always looking like who is spending the most money on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok. Yeah. And I'm looking at what they're doing. Even like, for example, about e-commerce. I don't run ads for e-commerce, but I can still learn from the top ads in e-commerce. So that's something I do every week and every month to make sure that I don't miss a new trend. Yeah. And of course, you have all these like little coaching programs or like memberships that update you with the best viral TikTok videos in the last 30 days. Then I also pay for that just to scan those. Yeah,
that's also something really awesome that I've kind of learned from working with you now over the years. And that's just this idea of like being a perpetual learner. Like I haven't been active in as many mentorings that I pay for ever as I am right now when working with you. And you constantly find these random you're like, this is a good program, like go check it out because it will teach us this and this. And it's just these like micro slivers that we're piecing together like, oh, this is a great program about social media. This is a great program about podcasts and so on and so forth. So there's so much going on behind the scenes that you need to realize. And from a standpoint of a brand owner like mine, I want to break it down real quick because the bigger you get with the people that you teach, with your following, with your brand, the harder it will be for you to remain in this frame of the learner because you're the teacher. Like all of a sudden, you're not just some guy who built something from scratch, chilling in your boxer shorts in your basement. Now all of a sudden you have a brand, you got tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers and or clients, and your ego kind of kicks in and you're like, I am the guy who teaches. So it's really easy to fall into this frame of like, well, let me be the humble guy who signs up as a client for another program of someone that does even better at you, or either in total because they're making more money and they have a bigger company, or with a sub part of something that is important for your business. And that is something that I had to learn actually over the last couple of years, because before that, I also fell into that ego trap of like, I have arrived. I am the good guy. I know everything. I don't need to learn. And then I saw you just continuously going to masterminds and being humble here and just continue. I mean, I remember we've had months where we just talk to each other every day, and the conversations on WhatsApp where I was like, we suck. Like, we suck at this. We suck at that. We got to learn this. And that really helped me because it put my feet back on the ground, and that put me into this kind of level of humility where I was actually able to open my mind and my soul, so to speak, to learn more and get better. And then the cool thing about that is, I mean, I posted a lot about this on Twitter too. Basically everything I teach is just stuff that I learned, then extrapolated it into my context, into my niche, and just passed it on. And that's how ideas evolve, and that's how you get better with your business. That's how you make more fucking money too.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's really easy, right? Because I know guys who are spending 100K per day on ads. So as long as we are not spending 100K per day on ads, I'm like, we suck. This is a bit extreme, of course.
Love it, though.
So I always compare myself with those people. And even then, I'm always thinking like there's some billionaire out there that is doing way crazier stuff than us. So until I'm at that level, I think I probably have a lot to learn from a lot of people.
Yeah.
And the second thing is also, you always have trends, right? Like you noticed that really early with TikTok and Instagram Reels.
Yeah.
Like that was really a thing. I mean, now almost everybody's doing it. I guess also because of Alex Hormozy and you who are talking about it. But like if you spot that trend early, there's like guys that literally make 3 to 5 million because they just luckily, I mean, I don't like the word luck, but you get what I'm saying.
They're at the right time at the right spot.
And they catch that trend and they make a bunch of money. So I'm like always looking for the next trend. And that sounds maybe a little bit counterintuitive. You are like, oh, it's a shiny object. It's like, no, it's like you have this foundation. And if you just add that one ingredient, boom, you might make an extra 2-3 million. I had a client who did some stuff with NFTs, like online course about how to sell and buy them. And he literally made like 2-3 million in 6 or 9 months or something. So he just used all his skills, used that trend. So there's always a new trend coming, right? And I want to use that one. So even if you know everything, there's still some random ass genius dude who figures out a new thing. And then I want to be one of the first to implement it so that we can also ride that wave, right?
So that's actually a really important thing that I wanted to emphasize here on this episode with you, because when we talk about perpetual learning, sign up for mentorings, keep learning, plus also be aware of trends, it's super easy to fall into shiny object syndrome. I've had this too many times, and it's funny because I also posted about that recently quite a lot on Twitter. It's this idea of find a business partner that completes you and vice versa. So I feel like for me, I'm a lot this guy that is like has like new ideas, and I'm like super optimistic. Oh, let's do this! It's gonna be so good. And then you come in with a healthy amount of cynicism, where you then say, "Hey, this is not gonna work." And I would say like 1 out of 20 of my ideas we actually implement, which is good, because if I didn't have that counterpole, we would just innovate the wrong stuff, and we would just constantly chase new things. But then on the other hand, if you wouldn't have that counterpole in me, we might be too conservative. So it's a very important thing that you're kind of this word of cynicism, and I have these crazy, mostly dumb ideas, but some of them work. How do you, in your brain, consolidate reinventing and adding new ideas with not going overboard with too much shiny object syndrome?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is time, right? Like if you don't have the time to implement it and you're like, oh, I'm just going to do this, then it's not going to work. So I think I'm a little bit more realistic with like how much time will this actually take. I'm thinking out the steps. I'm like, oh, we have to do this, and this. We cannot do this ourselves. So we need to hire, or we need to have one of our employees do this, and this. And then I'm like, okay, time-wise, it's not going to work, right? So, and that's also a finance question, I guess. Sometimes you just have a bunch of money and you can outsource it. Sometimes you can't. But the other thing there is like, and that's why I look so much at trends, because it's not like finding a trend is one thing. The trend also has to fit your business and your personality and the stage that you're in with your business. So that's kind of where I have the advantage of like working. I don't know how many clients I worked with, but I have generated a lot of dollars for my clients. So I have seen a lot of things work and not work. So it kind of clicks. It's kind of like an intuition where I'm like, this doesn't make sense, or oh, let me first figure out if this is correct on this form, or like let's test it in a smaller way to see if this will actually work. So that's kind of like, it's always about the nuance, right? Like you sell, hey, how to become a coach. Someone else sells how to become a closer. Someone else sells how to start your own agency. Like the same principles or trends might have different effect in different niches. And especially if you compare it to weight loss, if you're looking at weight loss and you want to, use a trend there, like you have to be really careful that it actually makes sense, your niche. So for me, it's all about context. It's just, and then I look at other businesses. Like you see someone crushing, like, oh, he's crushing it because he does, let's say, Instagram shout outs, right? And then I start digging deeper. I'm like, holy shit, they have like a crazy sales team. They have this and this and this. Before that, they had a big YouTube channel. Oh, they have a crazy email list. And then you kind of find some puzzle piece and you're like, okay, it's only 30% of the success, right? And they're like, okay, we can still do it, but we should not expect like these kind of results with this trend. And then you're like, okay, maybe it's not worth the time and money.
Yeah, that looking at the nuances is not only important when you want to see who you want to adapt, but also in your case, who you want to work with. And I remember when we started with you back then as a client, at first, of course, you just want to get your feet wet. You want to get good at the testimonials. You want to get good references. And then at some point, I literally noticed that in your demeanor and also in your output, you started letting go of certain clients and really only focusing on, I don't know, the top 10% that you were working with.
Yeah.
What are some criterias that you're looking for when it comes to clients that you want to work with versus clients you don't want to work with? And I think this is going to be super valuable for anybody listening that might also be doing service providing.
Yeah. I mean, it's not only about service providing. It's just about the simple question, like, how much is this gonna like make me in the short term, right? In the upcoming 1, 2, 3, 6 months. How much is it gonna make me in 1 year from now, 3 years from now? And how much does it cost me, right? Like if you're spending 50% of your time on a client that is, only making you 1K a month and the others are making you 10K a month, like there's a balance. There's no balance there.
Yeah.
So that's actually what I look at. It's like, okay, like I'm even fine with like, waiting a little bit until a client is at a certain point. So I know like if they reach that point, I'm really sure that I can scale them up. So it's really about like, okay, what will I make in the short term? What will it cost me in the short term? And what can I make in the long term? So for me specifically, right, I want people to do at least 100K a month. I want preferably a sales team that can handle more than 100K a month so that I can easily scale them to 300 to 500K. I mean, going from 500K to $1 million is a little bit different because you have to double your sales staff. So that's a little bit more complicated. But I just look for those things, and it's really about like, it's math. It's like the same as I do with you, where I'm just calculating like, okay, if you spend this much on ads with this average cost per call, with this closing rate, how much would we make on Facebook, on YouTube, right? Because the numbers are different for every platform. So for me, it's just doing the math. It's like, okay, how much can I actually make here? Or, of course, sometimes you take on a client with a maybe even a little bit less good deal because I know, oh my God, I can scale these guys up and it will be a great testimonial, but it's becoming, rarer and rarer.
Yeah, the famous get your foot in the door offer where you undersell yourself at first just to get a foot in the door. It's funny because you mentioned multiple problems that you can run into, and I want to go deep on that specifically, as much as we can share publicly with the last year, the problems that we ran into, and there's been plenty. And even though we've had a lot of problems, and sometimes it really just felt like we were just keep eating dirt, no matter what, we still made more money last year than the year before that. It didn't feel like it because we were super unlucky sometimes too. But, looking back, what were like the biggest problems that we encountered, the biggest unlucky situations that we had to overcome over the last year?
I mean, I think I don't want to make it like only about you. I think I can say it like I can generalize it. The biggest issue that I have, why I can scale as fast sometimes, is pretty much sales teams, right?
Yeah.
Because nowadays it's not as easy anymore to just close people on the phone. So like the level that a sales, like the skill level of a salesperson needs to be higher than it was before.
Yeah.
And it's harder to find those guys, right?
Yep.
It's like the same as like all the big corporate companies, they're trying to steal each other's employees.
Yep.
The same thing is starting to happen in this industry with salespeople,
Yep.
right? The good ones, they like, even if they are making, let's say 10, 20K a month, they're already putting feelers out. I literally had that conversation with another client yesterday. It's like, oh yeah, we had this big guy who's doing 8 figures and his top sales guy, his number one sales guy reached out because there were some issues with funding and blah, blah, blah. So he's not making as much money. So the biggest issue, I guess, is salespeople, like finding the right ones, hiring them, training them, also making sure that everything stays all right, because some of them start making 10K a month. And then sometimes it's personal issues. Sometimes it's, just them getting an ego and then they stop selecting a little bit. Or they look really good when they get started.
Yeah.
And just like the time to check that, like a sales manager's job, I would not be able to do it. It's so crazy. Like you went crazy with like checking sales calls and all that stuff. It takes a lot of time. So not every business owner has the time or has the skill to actually check the calls.
Or they are willing to do it.
Fair as well.
Yeah.
So I think like the sales team stuff, that is super important nowadays, and only becomes more important because people are used to getting sold and they don't want the same bad experience as before. So I think that was one of the biggest issues. Sales team. Yeah.
Let's stick with that real quick. So because from my perspective, because I spent, I would say, the majority of 2023 just managing, training, hiring sales staff, just out of necessity because we needed them, because we were getting more and more leads. Marketing was starting to push really hard, and we're like, okay, we need to find really good sales staff. So a couple thoughts here from my side is, number one, I went really hardcore in managing the sales team, and we have a lot of advanced clients that are making close to 6 figures a month now. Some of them are over the 6 figures a month mark already, and I see it with them. There's so much resistance with sales because they come in as a coach, right? Maybe they do the sales themselves in the beginning, But then they delegated, they got a closer, and they're like, okay, I'm happy now. All I got to do is create content, maybe be there for my clients. And then you reach a certain threshold where you're like, okay, now you have 2-3 closers. You need to start quality control. You need to have end-of-day reports. You need to have daily meetings. And there's a lot of resistance of the business owner of like, why? Like, oh my God, this is so much work. I don't want to do this. I want to have my freedom, la-di-da. And when I went crazy with the sales team, I mean, my AirPods were my best friend because at every single second that I had free, I had AirPods in and I was listening to a sales call on double the speed to do quality control of my sales. And it was also crazy because every single day I would see small mistakes. And every single time I would iron these small mistakes out, we would then close someone because we ironed that mistake out. So I was almost caught in that loop of like, it kind of sucked that I had to. I mean, I was literally freaking in a cab on the way to the airport listening to a sales call. I would download sales calls to listen to them in an airplane. I would freaking have dinner alone. I would eat my chicken and I would listen to a freaking sales call.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, we would always make money from it. So I was almost like caught in this loop of like, well, I really kind of don't want to listen to a freaking sales call again, but also it really kind of makes sense because we're making money from that. So that was really difficult, but it was necessary, and I'm happy that I did it because now also I have the know-how. When I hire someone to do only quality control, I know how they need to do their job properly. And then on top of that, what you said yourself is like, you need to be better and better and better as a sales rep to close nowadays. And the problem I see here is that the market for high ticket closers has pivoted to exactly what we talked about before. Is like when back in the days, the first offer of become a high ticket closer was super simple. It was just, hey, develop the skill. When you get good at it, you can make 10K a month in commission. It's great. But then, of course, there's competitors who did the same offer, and everybody wanted to sound sexier than the guy before. And all of a sudden, the become a high-ticket closer offer was literally just like, all you got to do is sit there, and you get warm inbound leads that are ready to buy from you, and you just need to sit there and make them an offer, and then there's going to be 5 objections, and this is how to handle them, and then you're good to go. So now that, of course, attracts a slew of people that just want to do that. They expect high-ticket closing to be just sitting in front of Zoom and just closing people that come in super warm. But then these high-ticket closers get confronted with the reality of like, listen, you're not going to close everyone on the first call. You need to build relationships. You need to build a freaking pipeline. You need to have really good management systems. You need to follow up. You need to handle objections. You're going to have the dumbest objections ever. You're going to have situations where you handle every single objection and the person's still not going to buy. It's going to be frustrating. There's going to be people on the call saying they will buy 100% tomorrow. They will swear by their mom's grave, and then they ghost you forever. And you're going to eat shit as a high-ticket closer non-freaking stop. So if you come in because you've been sold by a high-ticket sales closer guru guy that it's so easy and everybody's going to come in and just going to push the money into your face, and now you face reality, you're going to have a really, really hard time overcoming that. And that is then to now go full circle for people like us that have a company that need high-ticket closers. It's going to be really tough to find the ones that are actually in it for the long run, not the ones who just want to have warm inbound leads. We call them the diva closers. So I would almost argue there is a surplus of high ticket closers, but there is a very, very low amount of really good closers that you can get. And that's difficult. And that is why you need to do, I mean, we'll talk about this later a little bit in more depth. You need to do constant hiring. You need to have a hiring funnel. You need to always be talking to people, because if you don't hire less than 1% of the people that you talk to, you're bound to hire bullshit diva closers who are going to make it maybe possible for you to make a couple extra $1,000 a month, but impossible for you to scale to multiple 7, if not even 8 figures a year.
Yeah, 100%. And like the key to scaling, if you're at like 100K a month, is pretty much getting another closer. I mean, a closer can close 100 to 200K. Yeah. I mean, if you have a really high-end offer, a little bit more. I mean, a lot more. But so assuming like we're talking to clients that have a coaching business, they can close 100 to 200K. So you just need 1 or 2 more, and then you're there. And then what you just said, like if they suck, they're gonna eat shit for 3, 6, 9 months before they actually get some closing and make it work. Then there's top closers, like, you know, which we all started hiring, who like start crushing it from the start. So yeah, I mean, this is one of the bigger challenges right now. I see a lot of people trying to solve the problem, but nobody solved it in such a way that I would recommend them at least.
Also, because you can't half-ass your way through that. That's what I noticed too. It's like if you as a business owner, you're sitting with your Robin equivalent somewhere, and that CMO or whatever tells you, hey, listen, you need to have really good closers, and you're just like, yeah, I'm gonna invest 3-4 weeks into hiring some closers, and then it's done. It's not gonna happen. You cannot half-ass this. You need to commit for multiple months. And, freaking listen to sales calls while cooking, while showering. I mean, you told me before, it's like a friend of ours is using freaking waterproof headphones so they can learn under the shower. If you don't do that, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, or like if you get really lucky, your first closer is really good and he can be a really good sales manager.
Really lucky, though.
But yeah, somebody needs to teach them, right? And you're already going to pay a bunch of money to let someone else do it.
Yeah.
And then if they suck, it's not going to work, and you're going to spend a bunch of money on ads, or you're going to lose a bunch of money because they're not closing. Or you have to do it yourself. So that depends a little bit on where you are in your business. Some people get lucky with the closer they have, and that one becomes a sales manager. And for most people, that means you have to at least be okay with doing it yourself. Exactly. If you get lucky and you don't have to do it, good for you.
Good for you.
I'm jealous.
I love you forever, and I hate you also. But yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's crazy. Like every 8-figure business owner I talk to, and I ask them, what percentage of people do you hire that you talk to? They all say 1%. 0.5 to 1% of the people that apply that they talk to, they hire. That means you need to talk to 100 people to find one good one. And then we get people coming to us, and I ask them, how many people did you interview before you hired the sales guy? Oh, 5.
Yeah,
that's not enough. Yeah. So that means you hire 20% of the people you talk to, which is way too much. Now, again, you might hear this now and you say, well, I don't have time to do this many interviews. And sure, like you don't have to, if you find someone good, but that's the 6th person you talk to, don't not hire them just because you want to talk to 94 more people. But in general, that's a number you should ideally strive for. And the thing is, it might cost you way more time in the beginning on the front end to find, interview, and hire a person. But if you don't do that, it costs you actually even more time. Because if you just keep hiring B players, hoping that you go lucky with someone, and you just keep having to fire, rehire, retrain someone, that's actually going to cost you way more time, energy, and money, like you said, with ad spend, than when you're slower with your hiring.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's tough. But, at the same time, because people are hating us so much probably for this episode, they're like, I thought it's going to be easy. No, it's not. Okay, you're going to eat a lot of dirt. But the thing is, it's kind of good because the good, easy times, the sunshine weather closing is over, which means competition is going to become less. And if you're amongst the psychos that just sticks to it and just keeps going even when things go down, you're going to win. And I see this so many times, you mentioned it before, where someone gets lucky with a super hyper sexy offer, with something super trendy where you're just going to make $1 million or $2 million in a couple months. You can get lucky with that, but I see so many people who do, and then they start hitting a ceiling or they start hitting the first down phase and they just give up and start something new. And now what you're doing is, instead of opening your mind, your heart for this awesome lesson, and you're using that awesome lesson to overcome your own shortcomings and get better at something, you now just quit and start something new without actually facing that lesson, which means also you're not going to get that growth with you. So we've been eating shit for many years, and we've been through so much BS, and I've had all the right in the world to just quit and start something new. But if I had done it, maybe I would have had more money in the short term from that new project. But then at the same time, I wouldn't be the entrepreneur that I am today. I wouldn't know about hiring, training, ramping up sales staff. I wouldn't know about marketing. I wouldn't know about organic growth. I wouldn't know about making your offer really sexy. I would, in fact, be worse as a coach because I wouldn't have gone through all the problems that most coaches have. So I'm actually happy that I did. And in the long run, the EV, the expected value, is way higher than if I had just quit when things are difficult.
Yeah, and just to give a disclaimer there also for the people that are doing marketing or are struggling with their marketing, like sales and marketing are really connected.
Yeah.
I had an example with a client where I literally built everything from scratch. I was like, oh, this is the sexiest offer. I'm not going to reveal it, but it had something to do with AI. So I built the whole funnel, did everything myself, which I don't do a lot. I just do it if I see a lot of potential. I built everything myself. We hire a sales agency. Shit's the bed. It's not working. I'm not going to say any names. Then we hire some other closer. Again, he closed all the people that are already warm, no cold traffic. Then actually the brother of that guy, he was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. And he worked in that company. Out of nowhere, December, I think we did 150K cash collected on like almost zero ad spend.
Wow.
Started closing a bunch of people.
Nice.
Closing rate, super good. So sometimes you're like, oh my God, my marketing is not working. And that's the nasty part about sales and marketing. It's like, sometimes like, is the sales not working or is the marketing not working? And so even if your closers are not closing, like, you really have to go in there and listen to the calls to make sure, like, hey, is this a quality problem from the marketing perspective, or are there any other issues? So that's why I'm saying, like, you need a sales manager or yourself.
Yeah.
Even if it's not to train the closer, but you need to kind of double check your marketing with sales. And that is, again, like, if you want to grow to multiple 7 figures or 8 figures, you're going to probably spend money on ads or Instagram shout outs. The quality is going to be, the same, but it's going to be colder people who don't buy immediately. And then, you're like trying to fix your funnel 5 times. Well, it was just your sales, so that makes it a little bit more complicated. So, I think that's it.
We see that with everyone too. When they're like, yeah, I don't know, our funnel doesn't work, our ads don't work. And we say, how are your closers doing? Oh, they're great. Total A players. And I was one of those guys. Remember when you're like, you're not going to like me saying this, Max, but maybe we'll have a sales issue. And I'm like, nah. A player closers, every single one of them, they're crushing it. And then I started listening to sales calls, and the sales call would literally go like this. I'm going to reveal an example. The sales call was literally cold traffic person, had the money, had everything. And my A player closer back then, who is not with the company anymore for many years, but he said just like, yeah, here's the pitch, blah, 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 let's do it. And the person just said, I got to think about it. And I literally heard my A-player closer say, okay, no problem, talk to you tomorrow, bye. And I'm like, that's the A-player, like, and I didn't even have as much sales experience as that A-player closer, and that is where I realized, okay, we are not as good. And it hurts because you think you got A-player closers because you just let them do it, and you just, of course, winner's bias, you just hear from them when they're crushing it. But there's just no way around either listening to the sales calls yourself or you have someone who does it. It might be a rude awakening, but it's going to be a necessary evil.
Yeah, funny story there. Like, so how you kind of started figuring it out was because I was like, okay, we have a sales problem. And you're like, no, we don't have a sales problem. So I'm like, okay, give me access to all the recordings and the CRM system. So what I just started doing consistently, I'm like listening to a couple of calls. One day I just collected like 5 of them, like, Max, do you have time? We need to jump on a call right now. And I'm like playing the call on loud. I'm like, Max, do you like what he just said here? Did you even understand his name? Did I just hear him mispronounce the prospect's name? And there were a bunch of stuff like that. And then with the bigger deals that took a little bit more time, I'm like following up in the CRM system, and I see like a note. I will follow up with this person at this date. And I look at that date and I'm like, oh, it's not follow-up. I send it to Mexican. I'm like, hey, maybe ask them. Like, so I didn't want to get too involved because I'm not the sales manager. So that was kind of on Max, and I respect him for doing that. So I'm just sending him all the shit. And then he was like, okay. And I was just every month I found something new. But that's also how you grow and improve. So that was, it was a little bit embarrassing, I guess.
Yeah. And it's a good point that you bring that up because, I, as a business owner, I thought I was the shit, and I'm like, I'm too good to check all that, and I'm making money, and I had a choice, and I remember that inner dialogue I had. I had the choice of either saying, fuck you, Robin, you with your cynicism, we work with someone else, so I just maintain my ego, or I go down the uncomfortable route, which is going to make me more money. So even with someone listening or watching to this right now, there's always a choice to be made between feel good and tell yourself that you're better than you are, or feel like shit but make more money. So for me, I just had this mantra in my head, as long as it makes us more money, which then allows us to serve more people, I'm going to do that. I don't care if I feel bad. I don't care if I feel less cool, or maybe I can brag less to my freaking friends. As long as it makes more money and helps us reach more people, I'm going to do that. And that's, in essence, the mind fuckery, so to speak, that you as a business owner have to put yourself under, especially if you want to scale to multiple 7 and then 8 figures. And that mind fuckery continues with me. I mean, you and I have freaking uncomfortable, I mean, maybe not uncomfortable for you, but sure as hell uncomfortable for me, uncomfortable discussions multiple times per week. And you know this because we've been working together for a long time, but like, these ruin my day. Like, and I'm and at this point I'm expecting it. I'm like, okay, so we got the call with Robin later. I'm in a really good mood, but I'm totally willing to have my mood be destroyed for the rest of the day because ultimately the expected value long-term is going to be plus. And that's all you just want to know, because it's not just my responsibility for making more money for my family, for my future, for my kids, but it's also the responsibility that I have to my clients, to my team, to the families of my team that we're feeding, to the families of my clients that we're feeding, and so on and so forth. So is it okay if I feel a little bit bad, but then everybody profits from it? Hell yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, it's a saying that I use. I don't think I use it too often on you, but I always tell my clients, I will make you succeed or I will make you quit. There's because if there's a problem, that's just like also for everybody listening, like if there's a problem, whether it's in your life or in your business, there's always a reason.
Yeah.
The question is just, are you going to put in the time and effort to figure out what the reason is? And also maybe the reason is super shit and you want to quit your business or you want to break up with your girlfriend or you want, that's all fine. But most people, they're like, oh, it's not working. I don't know what's going on. Oh, I fired a media buyer. I got a new media buyer. Oh, same issue happens there. Oh, maybe I fired a salesperson. I hire a new salesperson. Same issue there. Like you need to go like really deep and figure out what's the reason. And then I'm telling you, right? And that's if I'm looking for a perfect client, I'm looking for someone who, if I show them the facts, I'm like, hey, listen, I listened to 50 sales calls. 25% of them I saw this, and this. And I asked them, do you think that's a good thing? And they say like, no, it's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, hey, okay, are you going to do something about it? And then they say yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because at least then I know like after we go to the initial phase of improving things will take off. And you're pretty much going to be successful for at least 5 to 10 years. Because if you just keep doing the same stuff, always like, okay, what's the problem? Yeah, the same, like sometimes you ride a wave. We hit the Andrew Tate wave, 6 months. We had some ads that were based on a little bit like Escape the Matrix, Andrew Tate. Then you started dipping a little bit, but guess what? We already had a new ad with a new angle. Yeah. And that's just business. Like you have to stay in business and you do that by keep going and like.
Exactly. And an easy way, I love that you said that with like, I either make you succeed or I make you give up. Like here's how I do it for myself. Here's how I ensure that I never give up is I tell myself the only way I have permission to give up is when I figure out the problem that makes it not work. Because a lot of people, like you said, they rather just give up instead of going the hard way and figuring out the problem. So I always leave myself that way out to say, you can quit, but you need to first figure out what the problem is, and then you have my permission to quit. And the cool thing is, at the time where you figure out the problem, you don't want to quit anymore because you're like, I kind of just want to fix the problem because then we can keep going and actually get better. And that's really the mind trick that you have to bestow on yourself. Figure out first what it is that makes you want to quit, and then you have permission to quit, but then you won't want to anymore. You just fix it, and that's exactly where you level up. That's where you get that bing, next level. You get a skill point that you can spend on your skill tree, and you can, have some status points that you can put on like 10 plus intelligence. There's a little Diablo 2 reference here for the nerds. Anyways, we've prepared these kind of like 5 ways for hypergrowth that are basically the necessity to becoming the number one in your market and beat your competition. And those are also kind of like the 5 points that we've been hitting.
Yeah.
I want to go through these with you.
Yeah.
So, and this is, again, we want to be careful here with shiny object syndrome, because if we tell you these 5 points, you can't just tackle all of them together. It's something that you need to crack. You need to crack the code on one after the other. And then, of course, you need to either manage each and every one of these points yourself to maintain it so they don't go down shit. Or you hire someone that basically then becomes the manager for one of these 5, waypoints that you need to hit for hypergrowth.
Yeah.
The one that we implemented first for us, which one was that in your opinion? Because we kind of messed around with multiple, but which one was the first one that really started working for us?
At some point that was the Facebook group. We started with Facebook ads and the Facebook group. But because you're really good at video, that kind of transitioned into YouTube. Yeah. I think also some context here. Like if you're making 100K a month, you can probably easily scale to 200-300K a month with that one way of scaling. Yeah. And you don't need to do all this stuff. For us, that was of course different because you already had a big company with a bunch of closers and a bunch of employees. So for us, that was pretty much running ads. But to go over those 5 one by one, like ideally when you get started, you start with like some kind of organic stuff, right? Yeah. Assuming that like if you have a lot of money, then of course you can all start with ads. But most people you start with organic, right? Like we kind of say like anybody can make 7 figures a year with organic. Yeah.
And the reason why we start with organic is because number one, it's for free. And number two, it's a great testing ground for you to test ideas that work the best in your audience. And then you can then throw money on it and turn it into paid advertising.
Exactly. Because what's nice about organic is like at some point you kind of have something that works, right? You could be LinkedIn, could be Instagram, could be YouTube, could be TikTok, could be whatever, like Medium. So when you have that, also the next step, like let's say you get to 100K a month. Okay, what are you going to pick next? That really depends on what you're doing. Like if you are really good with organic on Instagram, right, and you have like a broad market, you might go for Instagram shoutouts, right? So you start reaching out to other pages. We have clients doing that in the dating niche and in multiple niches. You reach out to other pages and like, hey, can I pay you to promote my page? That's one option. That's
one of the ways. So, ka-ching.
That's number two. Number two.
So organic number one. Paid Instagram shoutouts number two.
Yeah, so Instagram shoutouts could be something. If you have a little bit more specific niche, or if you just want to do both, or if you're kind of a little bit more technical, you can also start running Facebook and Instagram ads, right? Because you have proven that the Instagram platform works for you.
Yeah.
So you can start running those. Now, before we go to, so that would be number three, that's Facebook and Instagram ads. Yeah. Before we go there to the fourth one, there's also another thing here. It's like by now you kind of figured out how to sell your offer.
Yeah.
Like for some people, that's like, DMing people. For some people, they figure out, like, let's say with organic, like how to get people to book a call. So then you also kind of have your funnel there. It's like, hey, do I work really well with DMs? Do I work really well with people just booking a call? Or like, do I have some kind of ebook, or do I call people after they, give me their phone number? There's a bunch of ways to do that, too much to go into today. But so then you also kind of have a funnel, and that makes it also easier to pick the next step. So anyways, number three would be Instagram and Facebook ads. Then I would say number 4 right now is YouTube ads.
Yeah.
Again, like this is a little bit depending on your niche. But if you are really good on YouTube, guess what? You're probably going to do well with YouTube ads. You understand the platform, right? So then YouTube ads is the fourth one. And to be honest, that's all you need to get to $1 million a month. And then the fifth one is kind of like a bonus. Like if you're really good at TikTok, if you're going viral on TikTok, TikTok is a great opportunity, although the policy is pretty tricky. So you cannot make too many claims to make money, or like even with weight loss. So I put it in there as the fifth TikTok because it's a great opportunity. The scale is a little bit less and it's a little bit more tricky. But again, if you are going viral on TikTok and you're kind of like, my stuff works on TikTok, then that might be the go-to before you go to Facebook or YouTube ads. So these are kind of like the 5 things that I've used. For now, we are not even running TikTok ads. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure we can get to 2-3 million a month. And it's the same for other clients that without TikTok. But it could be a great opportunity if you are seeing results organically.
What kind of offers have you seen that work well with TikTok, just out of curiosity?
I mean, to be honest, all of them. It's just that at least all the make money online offers kind of got banned. So at some point, I had so many issues, like, for example, a trading bot or like other trading courses. I mean, we run yours a little bit, but we had to be super careful. We didn't get banned there yet, but for us, it was not the best.
Shout out to the TikTok fellas.
Yeah. So, and of course, you have like how to start your own agency, even how to become a remote closer. I'm running some ads. So those offers work. And then all the other stuff like weight loss, relationship, that also all works. But I don't run them that often. And most of the time you can scale on Facebook and YouTube. So then I do that first.
There's one of the things that I wanted to mention here as well. And that is kind of like a word of caution when you're hitting that pivotal moment where you're transitioning from organic to paid. And that was something that was really tough on us, sales team wise, but also in terms of organic content creation. We're going to go super deep on organic content creation in a minute here as well. But it's so crucial to get that transition right if you're used to organic, because a lot of things are very easy when you're doing organic. Warm leads, these people book a call, they jump on a call with your closer, and your closer just makes 2 or 3 mistakes, which are forgivable for someone that knows you, that comes from organic, but that are absolutely deadly sins with a cold traffic lead. You've said that example earlier was like the closer just mispronounced the name of a cold traffic person. That's enough for someone that just seen an ad yesterday for you to for them to not buy from you, for them to ghost you forever and never become your client. Whereas if you have someone who's been following you for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months and they're a fan of you, you mispronounce their name, they don't care, they're going to buy anyways. And that is something where we see a lot of people come to us and they're like, yeah, I got a YouTube channel with 50,000 subscribers and it's working well. I want to scale. And then I look at it and I'm like, hey, we should start running ads just on the side just to get used to it. And then they're like, oh, we've tried ads, but it doesn't work. And that's exactly that issue. If you have a sales team that is used to have warm leads that just, here's my, like the Fry meme, take my money, shut up and take my money. Like if you have these leads and then you get a cold traffic person who doesn't know you, who has suspicions, who might have gotten burnt by a similar offer before, who just doesn't know you as well, you're going to eat a lot of shit and you're not going to be able to close. And then, like you said earlier, you're going to have this whole debate of like, oh, the marketing for the ads is not working. Oh, we only get bad leads. Then your sales team gets disillusioned because, of course, your sales team rather thinks that they're the shit and it's the fault of the ads instead of saying, hey, maybe I never really learned closing in the first place and I kind of have to relearn the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, already, like, if you look at the show-up rate, like, generally speaking, the show-up rate is lower.
Yeah.
If you're running ads.
Yeah.
And, yeah, if they didn't watch 20 YouTube videos yet, they did not decide on you as a person. They did not decide on even your offer. They did not even decide whether they want to do it now. Well, if people are just watching your videos month after month, it's like at some point they have heard your offer like 20 times. So it's like, okay, now I have a holiday. Yeah, it's the right time to get started, right?
Yeah.
But all those things are not in place yet when they watch the ads. I mean, you try to kind of artificially create that in your video or in your marketing. But yeah, like it's a totally different game, yeah.
Yeah, and again here, it's not going to be easy. Have you ever seen someone transition super easily from organic to paid?
I don't think so, no. I'm just thinking out loud, but...
Okay, that's good. I would almost be mad if you're like, we've had this guy just crushed. Okay, so that's good to know. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, we've tried ads before and it didn't work, well, welcome to the club. Okay, you just gotta grind it out. You just gotta, listen to the sales calls under the shower, and then you'll make it work. You can make it work. You just gotta know how, and you either figure it out yourself. It's gonna take you up to 2 years, or you have someone who helps you with that, who just looks at it, and then it's still gonna be hard work, but at least it doesn't take you 2 years.
Yeah, I think also what's mentally hard for most people is, let's say you're making 100K a month organic, right? From organic, you're paying your sales guy 10%. Maybe you have some other costs, like you're making, let's say, 60 to 80K. And now, you start working with me, for example. I'm like, yeah, we're going to spend 10 to 30K per month on ads. Even if you have like a ROAS of 2 or 3, right, you're making that extra 30 to 50 to 60K. That's not that much compared to what you made before if you look at the profit margin.
Yeah, margins alone.
And so especially if you start with 10K a month ad spend, you make 30K in your first month. It's like, oh man, it's like 10K to the ads, and then I still need to give away 3K to the closers, and it's a lot of stress because I'm spending, my God, 10K a month on ads, and you only made 30K, right, for a lot of extra work. So it feels like the work you're putting in is not really paying off, because what you don't see yet is like, oh, if I can do that times 5 or times 10, and I don't have to do any extra work because Robin is just running the ads and I'm getting more calls and I'm hiring more closers, then of course now you're at like 200, 500, even $1 million a month. Right, and cracking ads or Instagram shoutouts is kind of like you build the foundation to do that, which is probably never going to happen with organic, or I don't see anybody do it, because then I would also try to close them for ads, but I just don't see anybody do it. So I think at the beginning that's mentally hard. It's like, okay, you're spending so much time and money, and you have a lower profit margin, which makes it a little bit scary. Yeah, and you're like, it's not worth my time. But yeah, and that's true. Like if you don't push through, and if you don't really scale, it's not worth your time and effort. Just stop doing it and just go chill on the beach and do your thing.
Exactly. And when we hung out last time, we talked about business is like self-development on steroids. It's I think the coolest way to radically improve your life. It's the best way to go on a rite of passage, so to speak. Because, like if you ever learn about the Aborigines in Australia, they just send their 12-year-olds on a rite of passage into the desert for don't come back before 3 weeks have passed. And either the 12-year-old then just dies in the desert. I'm probably butchering this, but you get the gist. Or the 12-year-old comes back as a man. And that is kind of... if you live in the Western world, you're not going to have a rite of passage like that. Your parents hopefully are not going to send you to the desert for 3 weeks. But you have this thing called business. And in my first company, the dating advice company, I would almost say that, learning dating as a young guy is a rite of passage. Because you're not going to get every girl's number. You're not going to be liked and loved by everybody. You're not going to be freaking Casanova at the first. Like, you're going to be rejected over and over and over and over again. You're going to be rejected 90% of the time, but it is your personal rite of passage. It is the modern day equivalent of going out there on an adventure, Bilbo Baggins style, and slaying the dragon and coming back with a pot of gold and your new wizard friend. And that's exactly the same with business as well, is you can either put yourself in stressful as hell situations where the dragon is, about to kill you, where you're going to have to fight orcs in the mines of Moria. But if you manage to overcome that, if you plow through that, if you die 1,000 deaths, literally day by day, you will become stronger and you will return with that pot of gold and the wizard friend. And that is business for me. And the cool thing about this mindset is it puts you out of a position of victim mentality of like, oh, business is so hard. Well, I see the freaking influencer chilling in Dubai. It seems much easier what they're doing than me. Whip-de-doo, win. If you let go of that, and if you say, okay, this is an epic adventure, I knew from the get-go it's going to be hard, and this is what hard feels like. Now you're getting into a position of acceptance, and you can almost be hyped about the adventure that you're on. And then the last stage that you get on with your mind is you become grateful for the hard times. And the moment you are grateful for the hard times, that is where you become freaking invincible. Because then you're lying at home in your bed after a shit week, and instead of crying and feeling sorry for yourself, you're lying in bed and you're just like, yeah, I'm so hyped. Give me more difficulties. Let's freaking go. I'm ready. I sharpened my sword. I've shouldered my axe. Let's go to fucking war. Let's be here to dominate. And once you are in that phase of gratitude, that is where you're opening your mind, your soul. I'm a little bit more esoteric than you on that. You're a little bit more down to earth, but yes. That is how you, I like it. You're like, yeah, that is how you open yourself up to win. Because at least for me, I had to get out of that victim mentality and I had to get ready for battle. And that's how it feels like. And just to end that rant here on a cool note, I literally listen to Viking music when I'm hustling. I'm like, I want it to feel like an epic battle that I'm getting into. And that was really helpful. So shout out for all the strugglers out there. I'm with you, and you can make it.
I also want to add something less esoteric here, which is also good exercise.
Yeah.
It's like, if you have goals, right? This is for the people that actually have goals, which I think you have if you're listening to this. It's like you just ask yourself, like, okay, how am I going to like triple or like quadruple my revenue? Or like, how are you going to go 10x, right? Like Grant Cardone. It's like, and you realize, like, for me, it's almost impossible to 10x with, let's say, only organic. Although it's a good question to ask yourself, because then you might actually build the systems to do that. And then you might actually go there. But most people, they don't really look at the numbers. It's like, okay, I need this many calls. I need this many, whatever, traffic from YouTube, or I need to publish this many videos, or I need to get this many views. And then you ask yourself, is that realistic, right? Did I ever do that before? If not, you start publishing YouTube videos until you slowly go up, and you're like, okay, but I see it go up at like 10%, let's say, per month, the views, or 20 or 50. So okay, if I calculate that through, you're never going to go 10x in this year. And then we come to ads. It's like, if you really want to go 10x, if you look at all the big names like that are making 2-3 million a month, they're all running ads.
Yeah.
So it's also just about math. It's like, just do the calculation in your head, and then you realize, okay, yeah, for now I'm not making that much money, or for now this is a challenge, but this is the only way I'm going to get there, because in my opinion, and it's kind of proven, I guess, the only way to get to your goal, if you want to make, like, let's say $1 million a month, is to do at least crazy Instagram shout-out strategy or ads. And also, if you do Instagram shout-outs, if you just run some ads, it's going to improve your results. So there's no way where you shouldn't be running any ads, in my opinion, if you want to get to 1 million. I mean, that's not my opinion, that's a fact, but just do.
I mean, who said that? I can't remember who said it. They're like, I think it was actually Jeremy, shout out, who said you're either blessed with a lot of organic, and I loved how he used the word blessed. Yeah, you're either blessed with a lot of organic reach, or you're going to have to spend tremendous amounts of money on paid advertising. Ideally, both.
Yes,
ideally exactly. For both. So, what I found really cool is like you kind of somehow came up with a system with us how we could literally just shoot like hundreds of ads, like literally hundreds of ads. And for me, as the person who has to freaking shoot them, it didn't even feel like that. can you kind of break it? I'm not sure if you're allowed to, give away all the secrets, but can you kind of like break it down how your system looks like when you're writing ads and how you allow me to shoot so many?
Yeah, so right, the biggest issue, right, as a business owner, you don't have that much time.
Yeah.
So you cannot record like 5 hours of ads every day or every week. So what we do is we make this whole script that, Max, you literally record, I think, in 1 or 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we can edit 100 ads. Now, this is based on like 2 principles. The first principle is that most people that watch your ad, they stop watching after 3 to 5 seconds. It depends a little bit on the channel. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 4. So what you say in the first 5 seconds is the most important. Most people already drop off there. And it doesn't make any sense like to write 100 ads that are all different after the first 5 seconds because most people won't see it. So what you do is like you really focus on the first 5 seconds and you create, for example, 100 like sentences that fit within 5 seconds. And after that, you have some, extra content and some other scripts. But now the magic comes in here is if you combine those, right? Let's say you record like 25-second blurbs of like video. And after that, you record 5 little pieces, then you can add them in different sequences and and after different variations of the hook. And guess what? Now you have 100 ads, right? 20 times 50. So like there you have 100 ads. Like why are most people not doing this? This is not like some kind of new concept. It just takes planning, right? You need to be really good, first of all, like coming up with all the hooks, writing it all down, structuring it properly, and then someone needs to record it, which is a little bit tedious because it's like this time you say escape the matrix, and then it's like the matrix trying to enslave you. So it's like multiple things that are a little bit tedious. But then the important part about where most people don't talk about, like you need to have a video editor who's actually doing that, and that's also pretty boring. It's like this literally 100 ads, right? And then it doesn't stop there, because after you have like tested all of those 100 ads, right, which most people don't even do because they're not disciplined enough, then you have one ad and you're like, hey, I have all these building blocks that I can start mixing out. Max doesn't see this because I'll do that for him. You start mixing out all the building blocks, and then out of that one ad you make 10 new ads, right? And then you're like, okay, let me see if I can edit the first 5 seconds differently, right? I show his face, I don't show his face. And later on you can even record those 5 seconds again with, let's say, an actor or something else,
or at a better location, which we often
different location. Yeah, that's also what we do, right? Like every 3 months we pretty much record the winning ads most time in a new location. So by doing it like this, I mean, you literally have 200, 300 ads, but why do most people not do that? They're not aware of that the first 3 to 5 seconds counts the most with ads. And the second thing, they're just not like disciplined and structured to actually do this. And even writing the scripts is relatively easy, but then all the freaking editing, checking if your editor put the right blocks, like block 1, 2, 3, testimonials, results. And then after that, you ask them like, hey, can you switch it up? And then you have to check the blocks before that. So it is tedious, boring work, but nobody's doing it. So if you do that, you can really crush it with ads with not even that much recording time, as you can attest to.
Exactly. And like you said, like that was one of the things that always, like I used to hate recording ads because I'm like, I gotta stick to a script. I gotta say the words right. It's like high pressure. Like they need to convert la di da. And like for me, like that Frankenstein system of like just really nail the intro, just really nail the body, just really nail the CTA at the end. It really helped me just like compartmentalize it into smaller parts. And then, like you said, is like, and then you come back to me and you're like, hey, these ads are crushing. I see you're in Cyprus. You're staying in an awesome villa. Let's re-record them in the awesome villa. So I see this sometimes too, is like a lot of clients that come to us with the idea of like, I'm just going to record these ads once and then they work and then I don't have to deal with them anymore. But in reality, it's like you're going to record the same thing 100 times with slightly different variations and slightly different positions. So the mindset for you as a person who records it needs to be like, this is going to be forever. Like you're going to test stuff forever all the time, also because the market changes. So if you come into it with like, I'm just going to do it once and then it's done, probably not going to be like that. But that also means that, when you're first testing out ads, the location isn't as important. Like we often test first the script in a relatively easy shootable location. And by the way, we've done this with me literally traveling the world. Literally. Yes. So if you think like, oh, but I need to be in a studio and I need to be at home in my office. No. Like we literally shot stuff in like Airbnbs and hotel rooms, like outside. And I'm not even sure if I can say this publicly, but like we've literally found the one corner of the Airbnb that looks good where we could shoot a damn ad. And like there's like there's like our luggage right behind the camera, like on the floor. You know, there's like food on the other corner, and this is like this one part where the camera looks really neat and professional, and we just shot the ad just to get it out there and to get the script tested. And then, you know, after a couple of months, we know the winners, and then we actually say, hey, let's actually shoot this one in a nice location. Let's make sure the background is on point. Let's make sure Max goes to the gym so he looks nice. No, that's not necessary. But yeah, it's important, and it's a process that you need to commit to. And, you know, for me, it's good that I have you to go full on nuts on that, so I can focus on the other things, which for me at my stage, and this is also something that I'm doubling down on in 2024. The primary skill set that I have is creating content and talking. As in case you haven't noticed yet, like for me, it really is talking. So I feel like every business owner needs to be aware of their primary, secondary, and tertiary skill set. And the higher up you go, the richer the people are that you talk to, the more you hear them say things like leverage your skill set, leverage your primary, secondary, and tertiary skill set. So a lot of times, when you're making your $50K a month, you're probably doing more than just your primary and your secondary skill set, because you're going to have to do sales stuff, and you're going to have to do this, and you're going to have to do that, and you got to be involved everywhere a little bit. But ultimately, the goal behind scaling to 100K plus a month is that you create systems and you hire the right people that take over the things that are not encompassed by your primary and secondary skill set, so you can then full on leverage your primary and secondary skill set and go all out there and leverage that, because that's going to push your brand forward. If you don't know your primary and secondary skill set, then what the hell are you doing here? Like, you should know this at this level. If you're making $50K a month without knowing your primary and secondary skill set, cool, I tip my fedora, but you could be making much more if you actually had a little bit of introspection and you know what you're good at. So for me personally, it's organic content creation. That's something I love. That's something I'm really good at. So I just ate dirt for a whole year in 2023 to build the systems with the sales team, with the hiring and all that. And I'm still involved in it. But I did that primarily so now I can actually focus on the stuff that I'm really excelling at.
Yeah, and to put this in a normal human language,
yeah.
what he's pretty much saying, what Max is saying is like, you need someone who is passionate about like your ads, if you're running ads, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about scaling to
this guy right here.
500K a month, $1 million a month. You need someone who's passionate about ads and creating ads. Like, that can be yourself, but if you're like, if somebody in your company is not passionate about like, holy shit, that reel went viral, let's see if we can base some ads on that.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, this ad is working. We're gonna figure out 5 variations of this ad. If you don't have someone like that in your company, then you either need to become that person yourself or you need to find that person. And that's kind of what he's saying with like building on your strengths. Like, somebody needs to be passionate about creative testing and running those ads so you can actually grow. So yeah.
And you know, this guy here is so passionate about it that even your girlfriend is passionate about it. Like she's literally like excited about this stuff. And I don't even think she's excited from it by herself. I just think it's the excitement that transitioned over to her from you. It's like a glass that has so much liquid in it that it goes over into the other glass.
Yeah. I made a joke like when we were grabbing dinner 2 days ago. I'm like, yeah, my girlfriend might know more about running ads than you, Max. But I'm not sure if that's true. I'm not sure if that's true, but it is. And then that's also another actually talking about like what it takes to grow a company. Like, that is also important, that kind of passion, right? It's like, I mean, you have sometimes worked with clients that are kind of like chill and a little bit boring, and you kind of have to pull them over the goal line pretty much. But like, if you don't have someone that is passionate about like recording the ads, like, or maybe jumping on a call with you, practicing the script, or at least sending a voice memo and like thinking about like where to record it and all that stuff, it's not going to be fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, the person you're working with also makes it fun. Like, and if you can make recording ads fun, of course it's going to be easier. They convert better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's also if we can give them a tip, like how to hire a good media buyer. That's also like, you kind of need to feel that passion a little bit. 100%. And that passion doesn't have to be like us talking loud, but it's just like they need to come up with their own ideas and be excited. And that can show in multiple ways, but they need to be excited when something is working, and they need to be excited about the new things they can test.
Yeah.
Because if they're not, then they're just there to charge you that 3, 5, 10K per month and then not really care. And then, you know, it's not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember the first position where I really saw that was actually with videographers, and that is both with the videographer that is traveling with me now, but also the first videographer I had. Like, these are guys that You know, I'm like eating, like we've finished work for the day, we're eating dinner, and they come with the camera and they're like, check out the shot, that like, look at the shot. And they're so excited about the shot that they took. They don't need to be, it's like, what are you doing? What in their spare time, they look at the shots that they shot. That's just, just another example of seeing if someone's really excited about that. And like I said, like for me, social media, just to kind of circle back into the whole combination of organic and ads, moving on in 2024, I actually believe that everybody needs to have a personal brand. Everybody. I don't care if you're the face of your company. I don't care if you're the media buyer. I don't care if you're in a B2B service providing or in a classic B2C coaching offer. If you don't have a personal brand, you're going to be replaced by AI or by someone who does have a personal brand, or an AI that has a personal brand. We've seen those coming up now too. So for me, to get back into social media in 2024, it's about time. And I've posted a lot in 2023. I've been super active on Instagram. I think there hasn't been a single day where I haven't posted on Instagram. But I've also posted multiple times per week on Facebook, YouTube, and so on and so forth. But that was me doing it on maintenance. And in 2024, I'm going to go all out with, like, we're increasing now our publishing on Instagram Reels to 3 times a day, posting on Twitter 3 times a day, LinkedIn multiple times per week. I'm just hitting everything. And the reason how I can do this, because some people say like, oh, but I don't have time to post social media all the time. I kind of don't have it time either, but I've just built a setup. I call this a setup. I've built a setup that allows me to just create content pretty much on autopilot. And there's so many different sources from which I get content from. Number one, to roughly categorize content creation into 2 different categories. There is content that I create actively, which is, I create a YouTube video, we set up the camera and I speak into the camera. And then the second category, there's content that is repurposed. And that is, for example, content that I have from my live calls. That is content that I have from one-on-one calls. That is content from me sitting in the car driving to the gym, and I have an idea and I tell my videographer who happens to sit next to me, or if my videographer is not there and I'm going with my girlfriend to dinner, I'm like, get your phone out real quick. Can you record me? Because I just have this random freaking idea that I want to talk about. So I basically have a camera ready at all times. And you do too as a listener. You're going to have your freaking iPhone or Android with you. There's zero excuses anymore to shoot a quick, cool idea. And you don't need to be perfect with that, because sometimes you have an idea and you're like, but yeah, I'll record it later when I'm freaking at home and when it's silent. A lot of times this idea or your excitement for said idea dies down, and then you don't even want to record that piece of content anymore. So what I do is I record every single one of my calls. And I don't just record it on the little Zoom, webcam or something like that, but I actually have an external camera that sits behind the laptop where I press record. I have a lav mic on. So with all my client support calls, they run sometimes 2-3 hours. I have the camera record. And then I just take the freaking SD card, I give it to my guy, and I'm like, here's 3 hours of stuff. Cut out the cool rants, cut out the cool 30-second value nuggets for Instagram Reels, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, cut out the 5-minute value nuggets for YouTube videos, and just, use every piece of the buffalo, so to speak, like the Indians used to do. So I can literally create months, I'm not over-exaggerating, I can create months worth of content without ever actually sitting down and actively recording content. It's just from my live calls, from my one-on-ones, from everything. Even when I have one-on-ones with my sales staff, because I do daily, not daily, but weekly one-on-ones with my sales staff, where, it's just a 30-minute conversation of like, hey, how are you doing? How's it going with your life? And, 90% of the time, it's just random stuff that is irrelevant. But sometimes I go on a cool rant because, someone says, oh, it's hard work, and how do I balance my life and my work? And I just go on a cool 10-minute rant. Boom, I have another piece of content as you shot. This podcast exactly the same. Like, how many reels are we going to cut out for you and for me out of this 1.5-2 hour podcast episode? Because again, I want every piece of the buffalo to be used because I'm a busy man. Plus, I oftentimes get hooked on something cool like I am right now, where I just ramble about stuff, and there's a lot of smaller value chunks in there. Cut them out, slap them in there.
Yeah, 100%.
And then, sorry, I didn't want to rant too much.
No, it's okay.
But,
I mean, it's the same with ads. It's the same with social media. Like, you have to do the boring stuff, build the systems, hire the right people that actually can do this for you.
And yeah, exactly. And then the cool thing is now, you then see, I mean, that was the whole idea with this Escape the Matrix stuff. You then see one of the random reels that was cut from a longer YouTube video going viral, and you're like, hey, Max, that's actually a good idea. Let me whip up some cool Frankenstein YouTube ads about that with different hooks, different bodies, and now we record an ad for that. So these things all feed into each other. It's a setup that is just meant to minimize time input on your side, maximum output in terms of content. And if you then have 2-3 smart brains that look at the output and they say, this idea works, this idea works, this idea works, well, let's use this quick rant from a podcast for a YouTube ad, or let's use this tweet of yours that has gotten 100% more engagement than the average baseline. This is a topic that people are excited about. Well, instead of having a tweet with 270 characters about XYZ topic, let's actually shoot a YouTube video about that. And then you go shoot a YouTube video about that, and then and now we're going really deep down the rabbit hole, and then you go into your YouTube analytics and you look at the retention graph that every YouTube gives you, because YouTube has amazing stats nowadays, and you see a spike on a certain 30-second part in your YouTube video. So now you go in there and you say, hey, this one part where you talk about this is actually something that people are really interested in. Well, let's cut that out, use it as a reel. Oh, now the reel performs super well. Actually, let's make an ad. So every single idea that comes out of your brain is worth documenting, whether that's on Twitter, whether that's on a LinkedIn article, whether that's as a YouTube video, whether that's just on a rant with your clients. Use it. Every piece of the buffalo shall be used. And then be smart about it. Look at which ideas go viral, which ideas fire. We call this a flywheel effect. You just, you create a piece of content, you'll look at the feedback it gives you. It either works or it doesn't, roughly speaking. The stuff that works, you double down on. Flywheel starts spinning faster. The stuff that don't work, you either try to fix them to make them work, or you just discard them and say, hey, me talk about this is just not something that people resonate with. So over time, you get more and more acute to what works in your niche and with your audience, and that what goes along with your character. So you get better and better and better at content creation for written stuff, for long form stuff, for short form stuff, for paid advertising. And that's exactly how you do it.
Yeah, 100%. I think also this is a nice way to kind of take the pressure off of ads. Like, ads are just content. I mean, it's like, Instagram is not the same as YouTube. Ads are not the same as organic, but it's just content, right? So first of all, look at it as content. Look at it like how you look at it organic. You record a bunch of them. Some of them work, and you do more of what works, and you stop with what didn't work, right?
Yeah.
And if you're already doing organic, which again, this podcast is for people that are already doing a 50 to 100K a month, you probably already have organic content that you can use. Sometimes I've literally done something where viral reel, and we just added an extra call to action. The person was just like, click the link below for the free video. And we just put it after the Instagram reel, and then we're getting leads. You know what I mean? Sometimes that's how simple it is, and you don't even need to record ads. You just use your reel. This doesn't work for everybody. I'm not saying this is the most optimal thing to do, but it's an interesting experiment.
Yeah, it all comes back to just dropping the perfectionism, both with ads as well as with any sort of content creation. And a lot of business owners are very humble because I think it's an occupation that forces you to be humble. We've talked about it earlier ad nauseum too. And then, but the problem with that humility that you're developing is it can sometimes sift into your content creation where you have an idea and you come to that idea with this like childlike enthusiasm and passion. It's like, oh, I want to post about this. But then that perfectionism comes in. It's like, oh, but is it going to work? Is it going to go viral? Is it going to convert? But the moment you think about that is where you're going to lose it, because it takes away the passion, it takes away the spontaneity, and it takes away the freaking fun of content creation. And it's just the same when with dieting. What's the best diet in the world? The one that you can stick to for a longer time. And it's exactly the way I create content creation. I'm not a fan of overanalyzing every piece before I ship it, before I publish it. I'm more a fan of like, let's go nuts, let's experiment around, and let's push the damn thing out and see what happens. You can then still create the almost the same reel, but with a slightly shorter call to action just to increase retention rate, for example. People don't care anyways. Like, what you have to realize is you're not the center of the universe. Okay, people are not going to be like, remember the thing you posted 2 weeks ago where you were wrong? Nobody cares, because people have the attention span of a goldfish anyways. You're not the center of the universe. Nobody looks at you waiting for you to fuck up. Just be yourself. Talk about the quirky, cool hobbies that you have. Talk about how you like Star Wars Episode 4 much better than 8, regardless of what your damn offer is. Talk about your favorite anime. Talk about your favorite Formula 1 driver, even if it has nothing to do with your niche, because people love that imperfect side of you. A lot of people think your potential clients are going to buy from the best offer or from the person with the most experience. No, I'm living a test to that. I'm not the person with the most experience. There's probably other offers out there that are even crazier than mine, but guess what? We still get so many people to buy from us because they can resonate with me as a person, and it will be exactly the same with you as well. If people can see the human side of you, they see how hard you work, and you pair that with a sexy offer, and you pair that with awesome delivery, that is usually the only three things that you really need to make multiple 7 to 8 figures, and that's also what makes content creation super easy, because you have the joy and the spontaneity within it.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I totally don't look at it like that.
Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying, but how I look at it is pretty much like, if you look at Amazon, if you look at Booking.com, these people are constantly testing. So for me, I'm looking at everything like it's a test. It's an experiment. I don't know the answer, and I have to test, and I have to look at data, right? And that's also how, like, you know, there was this guy who at some point said, like, in hospital, like, hey, you should wash your hands because it's good for you. You know what I mean? My girlfriend's probably happy that I'm bringing this up. She's a dentist.
Shout out.
And everybody's like, no, you're crazy. Why would you wash your hands? That doesn't matter. And now everybody washes their hands in the hospitals.
Yeah.
So this is like a test, an experiment, a hypothesis, as they call it in science.
Yeah.
And you just have, that's how I always think about things.
Beautiful.
It's always a test. You come up with an idea. It might or it might not work, but it doesn't matter. It's like looking at the numbers and going from there. So you can probably not imagine it that somebody nowadays would say, yeah, you don't have to wash your hands in the hospital. You don't have to use gloves. You don't have to use disinfectants. So even your craziest idea that looks crazy or sounds crazy to you or to everybody around you might work, right? Yeah. I'm not saying like be dangerous or ruin your whole business with this. I'm just making a metaphor for like why testing is so important. The biggest companies are doing it. They do it in science. Businesses are doing it. So it's kind of like a no-brainer. Like everybody is testing and you need to test. Yeah. So, yeah.
What is like one of the craziest ads that you've ever seen work? Where you're like, this is such a dumb thing, but hell, it works.
I don't necessarily have seen a dumb thing, but I like this ad where somebody told me I had a crazy click-through rate. And it was like something like, I thought my baby died. So... Right, like most people would be like, hey, that's too shocking, or you can't say that, or whatever. But some guy just tested an ad with, I thought my baby died. And at least a lot of people were clicking on it. I don't know the story of
what's the offer? Can we say that?
I don't remember what the exact offer was, but it had something to do with like, I mean, the baby niche is huge, right? Baby health, how to go teach your baby how to write and read before they go to school. And all the supplements and all the crap. Like there's a lot of stuff there. But for me, that was a pretty crazy ad.
Did you know how to read or write before you went to school? Because you kind of strike me as a person.
No, I didn't. I wish.
Oh, that's funny.
My children will.
I did actually.
Cool.
I wrote and read before school. I just taught it myself, and then they all thought I was a genius. Yeah. And then I went to school, and that's probably something you can resonate with more. And I was always really fast at all the tasks, like write this thing, and I would write it like double as fast as the other kids. But then I would get so bored that I would then just talk to my neighbor the whole time. And that's how it just went. Like every single teacher always said, like, Max is really smart, but he's a really, really misbehaved child.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens. So
yeah. Anyways, I want to talk more about, lead gen and sales teams. We've talked about it quite a lot, but more in regards to what do you see are the most common bottlenecks with scaling?
Yeah, so let's break it up in lead gen and sales. So if we talk about lead gen, I'm going to talk specifically about ads, although what I'm going to say now also kind of applies to like outreach and all that kind of things.
Like the appointment setters and stuff like that, you mean?
Yeah. The biggest thing is like, if you think about your market, like not everybody has the same problem. So at some point when you're running an ad, let's use your business as an example. It's like, hey, do you have a hard time getting clients, right? Then at some point everybody has seen that. So if you just focus on that one problem and kind of run one ad that kind of focuses on one segment in the market, you're kind of going to exhaust that. So there's two things there. The first thing is like, at least like if you run it with a new photo or if you change a few sentences a little bit or that. So there's not enough creativity within, like, let's say that message that works. But then later on, there's also other problems that your clients have, right? It's like, oh, I'm afraid to make a video for social media.
Yeah.
So they know that they want to make social media videos because they know they can get clients like that. So that might resonate with a different segment in your audience than do you know, because those people know how to get clients. It's like, I know how to get clients. I need to post on social media, but I don't know how to post on social media, or I'm afraid to post on social media. Or I posted 100 things, but it didn't work because I listened to Gary Vee, right? So there's always, like, already now this was like, could be 5 to 10 ads. So that creativity of, like, you know, making variations on the ad that works and then the other messaging. And it's the same with, like, outreach, right? If they're always sending the same message, if you're following up with the same message, like with the same angle, like, people are not going to respond, right? So if you look at follow-up, like, through the DMs, if you send multiple content pieces with different problems, different goals, different hooks, angles, then that's going to be more creative. So in lead gen, if people have a hard time scaling, most of the time it's just pretty much your creatives suck, which means you're not creative enough, or you had found one and then, or it was like good enough to spend, let's say, 1K a day, but it was not good enough to spend 10K a day, right? Because to spend 10K a day, you know, it needs to be an even better piece because, you know, you're going to reach an audience that's maybe less interested or not as interesting. So it's always about the content piece there. And I guess if you a little bit look at social media and outreach and all those things, it's also about variety and, like, being creative. So I guess that's the first thing with, that's the biggest thing with lead gen, is just not being creative and testing multiple IDs or actually becoming good enough, because it's like, oh, I can spend 30K a month now on ads, right? It's like, yeah, but I have clients that are spending 150K a month on ads, Facebook ads. And the difference is literally better creatives. Although it might look good when you're spending that 1K a day, but then you start pushing the budget and then performance dip. So that's the biggest thing there. I guess with sales teams, the bottleneck is, like, twofold. It's like, first of all, it's like what we talked about before. I don't want to talk about that too much. It's like hiring. But the other thing is, like, the whole sales management and the sales process, because that's literally an art on its own. I mean, we have a guy who's literally doing the calendar management. I don't know how if he does it the whole day, but it's like something that he's doing a lot, right? So, and just looking at, like, hey, does it make sense to call this lead first? Right, that gave this specific answer.
Prioritization,
or that was, like, in the system for a day or 7 days. Literally also had a conversation about that yesterday. It was like, oh yeah, we found out that we could prioritize better. And then guess what? More people pick up. And so in the whole sales process, there's so many, like, because there's so many things, right? You have leads that you can outbound call. What do you have to reach them and you book the demo? What do you do after they didn't show up? Then you have an application that didn't book a call. Then you have someone that actually booked a call but canceled. There's so many workflows. And of course, you cannot optimize them all at the same time. You kind of want to look at, 20/80 rule, like which ones have the most potential and which ones are happening the most often. But all these things need to be optimized and constantly changed as well. Like, if things change, like the numbers, that's also another thing. Some people, they ask me, like, hey, can you run my ads because it's not working anymore? And I start looking in it, and I'm like, every month I see performance drop. I'm like, hey, here your show rate was 60%, 50, 40, 30. Did you see that? No. It's like, So this whole numbers part, and, like, I'm making sure that the sales reps and sellers are actually being efficient by using the systems, right? And that's not their responsibility, just to be clear. That's of, like, the business owner or the sales manager. So there, I think a lot of people lose a lot of money just by not having the right processes in place, or never rethinking their processes and actually checking whether those processes are as efficient as they could be.
Yeah, I mean, we've been kind of shitting on salespeople a lot now, but this is also your responsibility to have that type of lateral thinking so that your sales staff can focus on the things that they need to do.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, just like, you cannot expect salespeople who are really good at communicating, like, they are good humans, right? They're good with humans, to, like, start looking into Excel sheets and, like, optimize the CRM themselves and, like, identify opportunities that they miss. Like, this is literally not how their brain works, right? You're not hiring them for this kind of stuff. So as a sales manager and or owner / business owner, you really need to make sure that you enable them to do their best job. And to be fair, there is a lot of shitty business owners and sales managers that don't really allow / enable their closers to do their best work.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, we're slowly wrapping up this year, but you can see there's so many different plates that you got to have spinning that you got to be aware of. It might have sounded a little too overcomplicated now because we touched upon a lot of things that you can do, But if you do things right, scaling to multiple 7 figures and 8 figures is relatively straightforward. I'm saying relatively straightforward because you definitely have to reinvent a couple parts of your company, and you're probably going to have to do a couple things that are uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, it's freaking worth it. You know, if I look back at my times where it was just me making my 20, 30, 40, 50K a month versus what we're doing now, and I have so many awesome A players in my company, and it really gives you a feeling of safety. It gives you a feeling of you're one amongst your own tribe, and you're really moving forward and actually having a real impact. Part of the reason why I love the online coaching sphere is because you have an impact. You're not selling some cheap China products or something like that. You actually work with people. And the more people you can reach, you can touch, you can change for the better, the more fulfilling it gets. And if you then also make, you know, multiple 7 figures a year or 8 figures, and you're taking a lot of profit home, that's good for you. That's good for your family, for your wife, your husband, your kids, your children's kids even. And it's just a really, really beautiful ride. So, you know, I got to say to you, too, it's been an absolute freaking pleasure working with you. And I think we're just getting started. It gives me this feeling of we've done so much, but we kind of are just getting started.
100%.
Yeah. So, you know, for everybody listening or watching, if you want to set up a content system, if you want to work with me, work with us one-on-one, you want us to scale your ads, help you with that, we're actually working with a new test group where we help you scale to multiple 7 figures or even 8 figures a year. You can literally apply for that. It's maxtornow.com/pilot. That's an extra, you know, sort of application that we've set up for people that are already making roughly 50K a month, 50 to 100K a month, and they want to scale and automate largely. Like I said, it's maxtornow.com/pilot. You just fill out a couple of questions about where your business is right now, what your niche is, and so on and so forth. And then we can hop in, we can analyze your funnels, analyze your content strategy, give you a couple tips, waypointers of how you do that. And then, of course, we can also see if we can make you part of our test group, scale to multiple 7 and 8 figures. Anything from you to add?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, literally everything we talked about now, that will be part of the implementation. Yeah. Just for a disclaimer, like if you're making 50K a month, that's a little bit tight. So we're kind of looking for people that are making more than 100K a month. Like if you are really like hyped about working with Max and also me, and you're making 50K profit a month, that can also work. But again, you need to be like then super driven and like you really want to push it because, you know, of course, it's not cheap to work with us. This is a new pilot that we're going to roll out. It's going to be really intensive for both of us to be involved because, right, I'm doing the ads, I'm doing the scripting. Max is going to be involved with like, hey, teaching you how to be actually good on camera, how to make sure all the photos are good, how the social media is good, have a whole social media plan so that you can pretty much post for the upcoming 3 months without thinking about it. So this is going to take us a lot of time. So we're looking for people that are super motivated or already make a lot of money. With a proof of concept that, let's say 50K profit, but preferably you're doing like 100, 200, 300K a month. You kind of figured out Instagram shout outs or ads or something like that, and you want to, blow it up and scale. So that's pretty much it. We will ask you some questions in the type form. Please don't lie about it because our salespeople will figure it out.
We will know.
And also we will literally jump on a call with you in a later stage before we would even consider whether we take you on. Because the opportunity cost for us is also really high to just take on someone random who, you know, is not going to be successful anyway. So this is totally different from everything we have done before. I think now I gave a proper disclaimer and kind of for who this is. Also, you need to be a coach, consultant, or a service provider, expert, author, or influencer. You need to sell something online in the kind of education space. So if that's not you, please don't apply. I think that's it.
It's been a wonderful journey. It's a wonderful world we get to live in. Thanks for being here. Thank you for listening. maxtornow.com/pilot, and let's crush. GG.